Monica Medina Murrow, and I am the student art historian for Northern California Arts Incorporated, and I'm here with Jan Miskulin to interview her and get a little bit of her history. So hi, Jan.
Hi.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
I am Jan Miskulin, a watercolor artist, teacher, enjoying a wonderful life with the wonderful world of watercolor. Although I work in other media, I prefer watercolor.
Yes. And how would you describe your history or your background in art? How you got started?
Well, I really came from two families, both mother and father, that were art people, not necessarily working in art. My mother was a school teacher, but quite creative. I also have cousins that were professional artists. I'm an only child. I was raised alone, and I was given a lot of materials and things to work with as a young person in order to just keep me occupied.
Yes.
So I grew up with it. My father's side of the family were not only really, my dad was a butcher, but he was also talented in music. He could play the violin. He also painted and carved.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really feel very fortunate to have gotten those genes.
Yes, it's very interesting to hear that your family were mostly artists. And
Well, not professional,
uh-huh.
but very creative within their own families.
Yes.
Yeah.
A creative background.
That's true. That's true. And they encouraged me, of course, to get into it. So even as a young person, I had a lot of tools. I had a lot of things to work with. And that's where watercolor comes in, because as a young person, I was never introduced to oils, really, until I was high school or college age.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked in watercolor,
Yeah.
which is easy cleanup. I enjoyed working with it in paints, but I also worked in dry materials. I like to draw. I always loved trees. I used to do a lot of trees, and I loved horses.
Oh, yeah.
I used to draw a lot of horses.
Is that where your love of nature?
Probably. I was always an outdoor person.
Yes.
I was a tree climber, a bike rider, and as I aged, I played a lot of tennis as an early person. I also went into golf, but I skied in the wintertime, and yes, I've always loved the outdoors.
That's great. Uh-huh.
We had a cabin in the Sierra Nevada, and so every summer I spent up there for 3 months.
Wow.
And I loved that.
Yes, that must have been a great time.
It was. It was a wonderful childhood.
Yes. And so you said that you weren't really introduced to oils and that you enjoyed watercolor. And how did that make you choose watercolor for pretty much your medium, your chosen?
I think I kind of admit that I'm a lazy artist. I like easy cleanup. When I took oils, which I was in junior college at that time, I always smelled like turpentine.
Yes.
And I also wore a smock over my clothes, because I used to spill it on my clothes, and my grandmother would try to get all that stuff out of my clothes.
Yeah.
So I just found that, and acrylics aren't bad. We used to use casein and some of the other things before acrylics came in, but I just liked watercolor. I also could do things with watercolor that I could never do with oils or acrylics.
Yes. And I totally agree with you with the oil cleanup. The only time I ever did oil in college, when I was introduced to oil, I was like, this is crazy. Like, it takes longer for me to clean up than for the painting. Like, I felt like I spent most of my time cleaning up.
And it's smelly also, too.
Smelly.
And I used to get a headache from the smell. So
yes.
it just didn't work, although I taught oils for a while as I went into adult teaching. I had some people that wanted to do oils, and I said okay, but I only had one or two, and then I just phased them out. I really found that I was not happy with the oils, so the watercolors really is my bag.
Yes.
Although I like collage, I work in mixed media, pastels. I use pastels. Charcoal to me is well, even pastels are again kind of not easy to work with.
Yes.
But watercolor, I've always done watercolor, forever.
And how did you get into teaching?
My mother was an elementary school teacher, And interestingly enough, because I'm not a very big person, I was encouraged to become an elementary school teacher. But I told them when the counselors said, I think you ought to switch, I said, no,
Yes.
I want a secondary education credential. And so I went to college and got a master's degree and also my general secondary teaching credential. So I've always taught secondary.
Yes.
And I really wanted to teach a while. For my mother always said teaching is an insurance policy, and it is.
Yeah.
It has a lot of benefits, and so I lasted 21 years in public education. And then when I went into teaching on my own, teaching adults and doing workshops, judging, showing. I at one time had 5 galleries going that would show my work.
Yes.
But that's where I met Nancy Haley, who was one of my students.
Yes.
And it was her idea to have a watercolor group. And so my class started out with WASH, which is Watercolor Artists of Sacramento Horizons. And we are now connected with the Sacramento Fine Arts Center. But in the beginning, we were not. We were just meeting at different places and also showing our work at different buildings around Sacramento and also out of town.
And how did you guys become connected to the Fine Arts Center?
Well, in about 1985, I was the first president of WASH, and Nancy Haley, who co-founded, she was the second president, and we started in 1978. And our third president was Marge Long, and we needed a home.
Yes.
And one of our meetings, she arrived at the meeting and she says, I found a place. And La Sierra High School at that time was closed down and became the La Sierra Community Center. And we went to look at the place, and it was the Industrial Arts Wing. And we decided that we were going to try to make a go. So we went, we scrubbed, we cleaned, we painted. And then one day I was there, the water pipe broke and the whole place flooded. I mean, we had a lot of interesting experiences. But it was a labor of love.
Yes. And it's just been so, it's been such a strong place, and it's ongoing.
Well, it wasn't all, WASH was not always strong. We started out with a wonderful group of people in 78. And everybody worked very hard. However, we had some times when it was not that easy. People indicated they wanted time to paint. They didn't want time to volunteer. And there were a lot of jobs that we had that were required volunteerism. However, there were a couple of times when we almost closed.
Yes.
But we managed to hang on. Our pilot light ran pretty low sometimes.
Oh, yes. And how?
But right now we're doing well.
Yes, thankfully, yes, that's amazing. But so can you describe more about what the meetings would entail, or how you guys really just started off? And I know that you guys, or that you had some of your students become members.
Yes, that's it.
Yes.
They were the beginning of the WASH board, we called it. And I was the first president.
Yes.
And all of the offices and all of the things, we of course had to meet and get a constitution, which was very simple in the very beginning. It was, we were a group of really artists that were professional. We were not a lot of people that were just Sunday painters.
Yes.
And so when we started out, we really had a lot of talent for people, for organization, as well as being able to paint well. And our first meetings were held at a seniors center where they would give me the room for painting. And we simply started out, and we invited artists in the community to demonstrate for us. We also shared our work. They brought work in at each meeting. We met once a month. And it's just that we would enjoy each other's work. We would we had really a lot of energy that came from the people that started out. So it was easy in the beginning. We had a pretty good membership. Even we had a show our first year in 1978, and I think we had 50 or 60 members. And I just said I would like everybody to have a painting in the show, so we did.
And I heard that you had members driving from very far
Well,
to make your meetings.
That's why we call ourselves watercolor artists of Sacramento Horizons,
yeah.
because they came from the foothills,
hmm
and they came from the valley, and they came toward the coast. Yes, we
Mhm.
did. We had people drive sometimes an hour just to get to us.
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. And I think that, I don't know, just hearing that history and knowing that you guys are still active, it's just incredible knowing that, the membership is still going strong, and knowing that you'll have a show this year. It's opening on Tuesday.
Well, that's not our show.
But
That's a sponsored show. That's
Uh-huh.
American Watercolor Society.
Uh-huh.
That is simply something that we've done after we moved to the Fine Arts Center.
Mhm.
And Wash has sponsored the traveling show of American
Okay.
Watercolor Society out of New York.
Uh-huh.
And yes, we've had it a lot of years.
Yes.
Yes. I don't know how many years you'd have to count. Wash is 43 years old.
Mhm.
And the Fine Arts Center, if we opened, I think in '86, it was either '86 or
Mhm.
'87, with the show at the Sacramento or the California Railroad Museum in
Mhm.
Old Sacramento, and I think it was '87 possibly that we began,
Mhm.
and we started with the American Watercolor Society soon after that.
Mhm.
But it isn't a yearly thing; it was every 2 years.
Wow.
So but it's
Yes.
been a number of years, right?
Yeah. And is there any particular memory that you have that is like fond to you about about Wash?
Well, all I can say, it's been a joyful ride.
Yeah.
It's been great, except
Yeah.
for the times when we really were very close to not making it.
Yes.
I feel like I've given birth to a child that after I'm gone,
Mhm.
the child will still be there.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just, the memories are having wonderful people,
Mhm.
marvelous acquaintances that
Mhm.
have become friendships over the
Mhm.
years. I imagine I'm probably the matriarch of the whole group, because I go now and everybody that is there, I don't remember. That is, they're not people
Mhm.
that are in my past.
Yes.
There are people in my present and future.
Mhm. Wow. Yes.
Yeah,
That's great. And you said that was your pride and joy that
It
Wash
is.
has been. Yes.
it is. It was not my idea.
Mhm.
Nancy Haley, who was a student of mine and also a good friend,
Mhm.
she said, "I think it's time that we get an organization."
Mhm.
It's not truly, I don't call it a club,
Mhm.
but it was her idea, and I had the class.
Mhm.
So we put it all together
Wow.
and started out, as I say, with 25 people, each giving $10. So we had
Mhm.
$250 in the treasury
Mhm.
to start out. But we simply moved our shows. We had a show once a year,
Mhm.
and we would go to all sorts of buildings and places of business
Mhm.
that would be willing to let us show our work until we moved out to the Fine Arts Center.
Yeah.
So from '78 until the last half of the '80s, we were a moving show.
Yeah. And as a Sacramento native, do you feel that Sacramento has a very present art community?
It's always been fantastic, yes. Like Wayne Thiebaud,
Mhm.
who I went to school with, and Mel Ramus, and Gregory Condis, and a
Mhm.
lot of the really who have done so well in the art world,
Yes.
that it's always been a very inspiring and supportive community.
Yes.
Sacramento has,
Mhm.
as well as with music.
Mhm.
The music was wonderful as well.
Yeah, I've come to Sacramento since I live in Vacaville. I love the exuberance of, like, I see galleries as I walk down, and I see murals everywhere, and also in college or at Sac State, I've learned about the history of the artists that are from Sacramento and have made
Mhm.
really good names for themselves. And it just brings me, it makes me proud to go to Sac State and
good.
to be, and to have just like, that history, that legacy that everyone has left in Sacramento. And so you mentioned that you were friends with Wayne Thiebaud.
That's correct.
Yes.
Yes.
And
He and I painted together. We used to go down to the river, the Delta area. We were in school together, and his easel and my easel were side by side.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so you met at Sac State, or where?
Yes, actually, we were in class. That's where I
Uh-huh.
met him. Was being in art classes with
Yeah.
him, and then we became friends, and I have not kept up the friendship really throughout the years. He and I float kind of in and out. I see him occasionally, but I haven't been a close friend. But we were at one time when I was starting out in my
Yes.
career, and he was pretty well starting out in his career as well. But very talented man. I just I cherish the thought that I knew and do know him while he's still with us.
Yes.
And 100 years old is amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, he's still going, and it's just that I've met so many wonderful people, and I have studied with many wonderful people throughout my career. I've just been fortunate.
And so I want to hear more about your art career and what you've been doing outside of WASH.
Well, I have given a lot of workshops over the years.
Yeah.
I have done just with creating and painting. I've been asked to do a lot of judging and giving workshops, demonstrations.
Yes.
I gave a lot of demonstrations really all over Northern California. I've been fortunate to have my work shown in a lot of galleries. I've been in the mountains, I've been in the valley, I've been over on the coast. And it's just, I'm happy that people have enjoyed my work, and I've been able to share with them through my sales and so on. So I also have work that was sold and also shown in Europe. And so I'm just fortunate to have had that wide exposure.
Yes. And as I was reading from your, from either little
Resume,
bio, very impressive and.
Well, I've been fortunate. I always say it's like being paid to eat ice cream.
Yes, and I see you have some work back here.
Yes, this is my studio. When I was living in Sacramento, I had a separate building, but I brought some of it with me here at Escaton Village.
And is there anything that you want to tell us about some of your work back here?
Well, the one up on top was done in a Sumier workshop. Sumier is brush painting, and some of it is with black and white, but this happens to be in color, done in the Japanese style. The one below is my interpretation of the governor's mansion downtown. It is part collage. It works with watercolor. It works with stick and ink. I do use stick into the bottle of NCA Inc. It's one of my favorite ways to work. And the one over there, I don't know that it shows on your camera, but it's my interpretation of the Sacramento River down below Sacramento. This one here is actually, I don't know, again, if you see that too well, but it is some of the fountains out front as you came in.
I saw them, yeah.
Now that's done in acrylic.
Wow.
That's acrylic on canvas. The one up above up here is koi, and the background of that was done at McCarricker Beach State Park up out of Mendocino above Fort Bragg. And we laid the paper on the beach. We poured sand, feathers, stone, everything on it, poured watercolor all over it. When it dried, and I of course brought it home, then I put the paper fish in. The koi.
Yeah.
I like to work a lot of different ways. This one that's behind me is Noyo Harbor, and it happened that I spilled a bottle of ink on it, so it's quite dark.
Oh wow! Oh my gosh!
So, but I that's not the full painting. Part of it was cut away.
Wow.
But that kind of explains the ones that are right here.
Yeah, that's I love hearing the stories. And the fountain, when I drove up.
Did you see the fountain?
Yes, you told me that I would see the fountain.
Well, there's 3 in there. The main one, and then there are 2 on either side, plus some of the palm.
And did you paint this outside?
Yeah.
Oh, you did.
I paint everything outside.
Yes.
Everything is on location. Right.
And I have never painted like that before,
But you drew outside.
I've drawn outside.
When you were at college,
Yes.
if you drew outside, you could paint outside.
Yeah. I'll have to try that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come over sometime.
Oh, I would love to.
I'll paint with you here.
Yeah, I love that so much. I loved watercolors when I was younger because, like you said, it was like
They're easy cleanup.
yeah. My mom wasn't worried
I'm
about
lazy,
me.
and I admit it. I really
Yeah.
don't like to have to work too hard. Even in painting and going outside, I travel light, but I used to haul all my things over hill and dale, and it's what's kept me going as to my age now.
But that's great. You get I don't know. I love just like how you're so active.
Well, this is my love.
Yes.
Watercolor truly is my love. I just find that when things get pretty rough, all the stress of last year and so on, that I have some paintings here that I did paint. And I painted flowers. That's one of them there. I'll show you those when we're off camera.
Yeah. And when you painted the flowers, were they flowers?
Real flowers.
Yeah.
I was inside. I was out on the observation deck. At least I was in the open air.
Yes.
I find that I finish things up sometimes in the studio, but I am not a studio painter. I really am not. To me, I enjoy being outside. I enjoy the breezes. I enjoy the temperature. I enjoy what I have to put up with. I've been on the beaches with the sand coming in my face and all over my palette. But that's the excitement, which I try to show in my work. But to me, emotion is more important. That it's my reaction to the painting, to the scene that I paint, and it's more important than the technique. To me, technique is okay. People who can paint like a camera, fine, but we're not cameras.
No.
We're not machines.
Yes.
We're human beings.
Yeah.
And we need to show that in our work, our reaction to what we see or what we feel.
That's beautifully put. Yeah, I love that.
I always say there's three things that we work with. There's head, there's hand, and there's heart. But number one to me is heart.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. Thank you. I think that'd be lovely to end off on. That was really, I don't know, that really touched me.
Well, that's good.
Yes.
I'm happy.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much. I think we're good.